A graduate transfer quarterback is visiting Missouri. Meanwhile, Eli Drinkwitz surprisingly lets his 2 scholarship quarterbacks actually talk to the media. And I've got a couple adjustments to my top 5 Missouri basketball coach wish list coming up right now on Locked On Mizzou.
You are Locked On Mizzou, your daily podcast on the Missouri Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey, all you true sons and daughters, I'm John Miller, your Mizzou mafioso and the central scrutinizer of Missouri Tigers football and basketball. Thanks for making Locked On Mizzou your first listen every day, and thanks for telling a friend. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and also on YouTube as well. Well, of course, we do want to get to Missouri's basketball coaching search, right? All coaches all the time for the most part here on the Mizzou beat. But, of course, the Missouri quarterback situation is the other huge topic going on, at least here in spring of 22, here around Columbia, Missouri. And JT Daniels, apparently the former Georgia and USC quarterback, at one point the #1 overall recruit in the country, ranked by Rivals.com a few years ago. Well, reportedly, according to the Dog Nation blog online, apparently he is going to make a visit to the University of Missouri. So obviously, Eli Drinkwitz still very much interested in possibly adding to that quarterback room. And, well, in fact, Tyler Macon, Brady Cook, both got the opportunity. The current Missouri quarterbacks on the roster got the opportunity to speak with the media just yesterday. And, well, for their part, both guys were asked about this potential competition, and for their part, they both said, bring it on. And indeed, first of all, I want to say good on Eli Drinkwitz for having a change of heart, because it wasn't a week ago where he was saying, hey, good luck, we're not going to be talking to the quarterbacks all spring. Well, obviously he had a change of heart, and I'll just say good on Eli Drinkwitz for that. And like I said, when I criticized Drinkwitz a little bit for making that decision, what exactly was the harm? Both guys, I thought, did a good job of, basically saying nothing, right? Honestly, Brady Cook maybe did a little bit better job of saying nothing while being a little bit more entertaining, if I'm being honest with you. But again, that's not the measure of a good quarterback, is it? This isn't stand-up comedy or a night at the Improv. How entertaining you are in front of a microphone is really not that important to me. But I will say, I was impressed with both young men, just their poise up there. And again, just obviously the know-how of, hey, I'm not going to say anything stupid here. I'm not going to back down from competition. But at the same time, yeah, obviously I'm going to speak well of my competitor and my teammate, whether it was Brady Cook or Tyler Macon. So, again, nothing earth-shattering coming from either one of these young men, but Eli Drinkwitz spoke about the 2 quarterbacks as well. And, well, some of his remarks I did think were a little bit revealing.
I think it's growth. I think it's growing. Both are really young and are going through. I mean, both of them are going through their second spring. Brady was here, but we had COVID, had to cancel after the third practice. So they're both going through their second spring, and they're both in a quarterback battle for the first time, where it's not defined who's going to win it. So, it's really it's a lot of fun for me to watch, because I can see it from a 30,000 feet view, and I don't think they quite have as much fun because they're in the middle of that nitty-gritty. But I'm really excited because they're both showing growth. They're both maturing. They're both trying to do what we ask them to do, and it means a lot to both of them. God, they both want to be the starting quarterback for the University of Missouri, and they both got the right stuff. So I can't wait to continue to watch this battle unfold. Can't wait to add other guys to it, man. Look forward to Sam getting in here this summer. And as the late Colin Powell said, the only thing better than a little competition is a lot of competition. And we're going to continue to add competition to this quarterback battle, because we need it. We need it in order to win. We need it in order to win in this league. We had to play good at that position.
Certainly interesting to hear Drinkwitz praise both quarterbacks, and yet at the same time say, hey, I'm excited to possibly add to that quarterback room as well. So obviously the pressure is always on at the quarterback position, no doubt about that. And you know what? Speaking of Tyler Macon, I discussed him earlier in the podcast maybe a week or two ago, just saying I'm surprised at how quickly it seems like some Mizzou fans are essentially giving up on Tyler. And to me, that's a mistake. And, well, if you listen to Drinkwitz, it sure doesn't sound like he's giving up on Macon either.
I think just he's getting more and more comfortable with the offense and playing quarterback in the system that we play and the things that we're asking him to do. You know, we want him to be uniquely him and utilize his gifts and talents, but he's got to do it within the framework of our offense. And there are certain things that we ask those quarterbacks to do that he's, you know, still learning. You know, this is his second spring ever. And so he's still processing those things. You're seeing growth. He's making some better decisions, making better throws, being more accurate. But you know, Rome wasn't built in a day. We had to talk to him this morning or this afternoon before our team practice and our team meeting just about bamboo, right? You water it for 5 years and you see nothing, and then it can grow in a matter of 6 weeks, 6 feet. So that's the process, right? You got to continue to water it, continue to repeat the steps necessary in order to grow.
Well, that's a good analogy. In fact, I like the bamboo analogy, maybe more than I liked the Colin Powell quote, which I wasn't exactly sure where that came from. That came out of a bit of left field. I didn't realize Colin Powell was your sports go-to quote guy. But regardless, I did think that it was interesting for Drinkwitz to point out just the relative lack of experience for Macon, especially when you consider that his 2020 high school season was canceled. He didn't get to play high school football, so his first real game action since his junior season of high school was in Athens, Georgia against the national champions last year. So obviously let's not judge him too harshly just based on that one start. Now, as you probably expect, Drinkwitz was asked about standout wide receiver, true freshman Luther Burden, of course, and well, quickly Eli Drinkwitz said, yes, he's a good player. And that was about it there. Then we quickly moved on. So clearly, Drinkwitz likes to control the hype a little bit, control the narrative as best he can. Obviously, he was originally thinking, hey, I'm not going to let these quarterbacks talk to the media. He let up a little bit there. I'd be pretty stunned if we got to talk to Luther Burden this spring or even in fall camp leading into the season. That's for darn sure. Which, frankly, makes a little bit of sense. Hey, this guy has enough pressure on him already. Let's maybe let a little bit of air out of the balloon. I'm okay with that. But Drinkwitz also asked about some other standouts who have stood out, I should say, in spring practice so far, and he gave us some names, and I want to get to that soundbite. But first, let's talk about Stat Hero, and man, do all of us love March Madness or what? What a great time of year, and well, this time, tomorrow, in fact, the games will be starting in earnest. Oh, I love it so much. But you know what? It's kind of a bummer when you lose your first few games, right? And you feel like your bracket is already busted. Well, this year I'm hedging my bets with Stat Hero's NCAA Pick'em contests. You see, these single-game Pick'em contests pit star players against each other in an amazing hybrid between fantasy and sports gambling. Start focusing on the players you know best with gameplay that doesn't rely on big spreads, long odds, funky props. Just take control back from the handicappers that always seem to have the edge. Well, with Stat Hero, you're going to have the edge because you get to decide exactly what type of gaming you want to do. Stat Hero is the simplest and easiest and fastest way to get your sports action fix. This is what daily fantasy was meant to be. So sign up for free right now at stathero.com/lockedon. Use the promo code LOCKEDON for a 100% deposit match. That's stathero.com/lockedon. Use the promo code LOCKEDON for a 100% deposit match. stathero.com/lockedon. Promo code LOCKEDON. Terms and conditions apply. And by Built Bar. And as you know, Built Bar has quite the partnership with Brigham Young University from this past football season. Well, I brought up Mark Pope as a possibility for the Tiger basketball team. Well, maybe if he were hired by the university, maybe he could bring some of those delicious Built bars with him. But you know what? Fortunately, you can get them right now at Built.com, these delicious 100% real chocolate bars that are low-cal, low sugar, low carbs, but yet high in protein at the same time, so you get the best of both worlds. A snack that's satisfying, but yet you don't have to feel guilty about it. And then, oh yes, again, 100% real chocolate. As a chocolate lover, it doesn't get any better than that. So you know what? Go to Built.com. Use the promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off your next order. Again, that's promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at Built.com. And just a quick reminder, be sure to check out the Locked On Bracket Breakdown. It should have downloaded into your Locked On Mizzou feed if you're a subscriber, by the way, so it should be sitting there in your podcast device right now. But if you haven't, again, check out Locked On Bracket Breakdown with Chris Gordy, Andy Patton, and betting expert Lee Sterling to give you in-depth breakdowns on every single matchup of March Madness. Eli Drinkwitz was put on the spot a little bit with the media today, having to list some spring standouts so far, and well, he stammered a little bit, just like I did just now. But you know what? Eventually, Eli was able to spit out a pretty good answer and give us a lot of insight on some newcomers and just some guys who've looked good in spring so far. So again, let's hear from Eli.
You know, you're kind of catching me off guard with that, but you know, I look at guys like Drayden Norwood, who is, you know, a transfer that we didn't really know much about, who played quarterback in high school, that's really come in and asserted himself and getting a ton of reps with the ones, and Coach Pogue's really challenging him to get better and you know, putting oven mitts on him to keep him from holding in one-on-ones. And I see the struggle and I see the growth there. I think the way Isaiah McGuire practices every day, he's challenging himself to be a dominant defensive end. You know, Darius Robinson, it really matters to him and how he takes care of his body and how he leads this football team and being a dominant player on a down in and down out basis. I think Chad Bailey's really determined to be physical. You know, we challenged Devin Nicholson to put on some weight, and he's weighing 231, and that's individual growth right now. On the offensive side of the ball, you know, Toski Dove to be more consistent on vertical plays, making contested catches. Saturday, he was the offensive player of the day, had at least 5 vertical catches down the field where he went up and made plays over defenders. You know, Zeke Powell, we've asked him to move to right tackle and you know, to really develop, to be, you know, to learn that position. And there's been days when it hasn't looked good, but he keeps coming back every day. He's not giving in to the despair or the negativity, man. He just keeps fighting his butt off. And I thought Saturday he had a really good day, setting the edge and pass protection. And you know, I'm sure there's a lot more that I could point out, but those are some of the guys that right off the top of my head really hit me like, yeah, we're seeing the things we want to see.
So obviously Drinkwitz threw a lot of names at us there, but one at the beginning there, you're probably familiar with most of those guys, but Drayden Norwood, the transfer there he mentioned, well, transfer from Texas A&M, cornerback, played obviously high school quarterback is what Drinkwitz was referring to there. I don't think he mentioned his actual position on the team, though, so just wanted to clarify that quickly. And, you know, Norwood, a high-level recruit out of high school, I believe a 4-star player, perhaps an athlete, perhaps as a defensive back. I'm not exactly sure. But either way, a guy with some high upside. So glad to hear that a young player that Missouri nabbed out of College Station is starting to look the part. One thing I did note about Brady Cook and Tyler Macon is that both guys were asked about the draft coming up today for the black and gold game on Saturday. Group of seniors for each side is going to draft the squads, including groups of coaches, basically. But just thought it was interesting that both Macon and Cook both had some smiles on their faces when asked about that draft. So I don't know if they're interested to see which one of them goes first. Perhaps they're just interested to see how the whole thing goes, get a real actual football game going. Tigers haven't been able to scrimmage quite as much as they've wanted to because of weather this spring so far. So maybe that's all it, but you could just kind of tell the sort of competitive fire that both of those guys had when, in my opinion, when you could just see a little bit of a twinkle in their eye when the draft was brought up. Now, when it comes to the Missouri basketball coaching search, not a lot of big updates that I have for any of you, but when it comes to my top 5 and maybe a spare part or two that I mentioned from the other day, well, I think we can probably safely remove Mark Pope at this point, the BYU head coach, because, well, I just haven't heard a lot of scuttlebutt tying him to really to not only Missouri, but really any jobs outside of Brigham Young at this point. So I'm just not seeing that as a realistic option. He was brought up by people on the Mizzou beat as somebody, hey, outside of the Power 5 who's had a lot of success. So as far as that goes, it made sense, but it doesn't sound like Mark Pope is really a Missouri target at the moment. I also brought up Mike Boynton from Oklahoma State, and part of that was because of Oklahoma State's kind of weird circumstances the last few years. I think he's been a successful coach in a lot of ways, but considering he played at South Carolina, while those are helpful SEC ties from Missouri's perspective, well, you may now realize that Frank Martin is out at South Carolina, so I'm really thinking Mike Boynton is a pretty strong candidate to possibly replace Frank Martin there. So if Mike Boynton wants to be on the move, it sure seems like the Gamecocks is a more obvious fit than Missouri. On the other hand, add Dennis Gates from Cleveland State. He's a name I had brought up earlier in the week, but a guy I didn't have in my top 5. Well, just now, frankly, from Gabe DeArmond's reporting this morning on Power Mizzou, it sounds like he's somebody Missouri's taken a good long look at. So let's add him to the list. And again, somebody I was initially interested in, but maybe not so interested in that I'd get him in my top 5. Well, now I'd probably slide him in there with those other 2 guys sliding out. So there's that thrilling update for you. Unfortunately, I don't have much else for you. Of course, on another basketball note, Anton Brookshire has entered the transfer portal. Now, it is possible he could just be looking around, seeing what else is out there now that Conzo Martin, the coach that recruited him to Missouri, is no longer in the fold. Who knows what could happen there, but frankly, if Brookshire leaves, that'll be disappointing because I liked his game coming out of high school, and I just felt like we never got to totally see him show off what he could do. But you know what? Again, we'll just wait and see. And coming up, I've actually got a special segment for you all to finish the show with Locked On SEC host Chris Gordy and our friends at Stat Hero. So be sure to stay for that. But first, I want to tell you about Rock Auto. This episode is brought to you by Rock Auto, in fact. And with so many cars on the road these days, and different types of cars too, by the way. So many electric vehicles these days. Well, guess what? They need different types of parts, different types of maintenance. Well, that means, quite simply, your local store can't carry everything you need. But you know who can? RockAuto.com. They have an endless, practically, amount of inventory, of warehouses where they can house everything you could possibly imagine. So head to their website right now, rockauto.com, see the parts available for your car or truck, and when you do, please write Locked On in their How Did You Hear About Us box so they know we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably, low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. rockauto.com.
Going along here, Locked On SEC, and man, we are talking all about the tournament, getting you guys ready. So much going on and so many different ways to get involved in the action. Look, there's gone are the days where you just fill out a bracket, and then by Thursday night, your freaking bracket's busted, you're depressed, you're down to the dumps. So we figure we'd get somebody in here who might be able to give you another way to get involved with the tournament where, you could actually keep playing after that little sheet of paper you filled out is gone and done and dead with on Thursday night. And one of the guys coming in here to talk a little bit about other ways you can get involved is our buddy Jason Jaramillo from Stat Hero. He is the CEO of Stat Hero and, of course, the app. Stat Hero, you can find it in the App Store, and just go to stathero.com/lockedon is how you can find it on the website. But, Jason, what's going on, man? Welcome in.
On the last name, man. That sounded great.
Well, perfect. Glad we could get it right for you. Let's just jump right in, man. What are your thoughts on how the bracket kind of shaped out this weekend? Because look, there was a lot of things happened that were expected, but look, we cover the SEC. We were a little disappointed that Texas A&M didn't get in. We thought they did enough running through the conference tournament, losing to Tennessee in the championship game, but seemed like they had put together enough, but they get left out. But man, some big dogs up top with Tennessee and obviously Auburn and Kentucky and Arkansas. So SEC looks to be in pretty good shape here. But what'd you make on how the bracket shaped out?
Well, there was my I'm going to even call him a dark horse. Before the conference tournament even started, I was all on board with it's easy to say now, but Tennessee was my team. Where's the love, Chris? Like, how did they not get a higher seed than they got is at least my take on it, just looking at the bracket, right?
Yeah. It seems like they don't put any focus on, like, why are we playing the conference championship games if you're not even going to take into account the winners of that, right?
Yeah, like, A&M made it to the championship, but no, they don't deserve that.
Right.
So, yeah, I completely agree with you on that, man. But, yeah, that was probably the biggest one that stood out to me the most. For me right now, I don't see Auburn really moving that far. At least this is, again, my personal opinion. Again, like you said, A&M didn't get the bid, but those were both good. Both of my main calls, because Auburn lost so early. You don't really see in the history of the tournament on a team losing early going far in the tournament. You know what I mean? Yeah,
no, it's a great point. And, when you lose early in your conference tournament game, it's very rarely do you make it deep into the tournament. So for Auburn, they're really going to have to dig deep. But they got the talent. They got NBA talent on that roster. Jabari Smith is a monster, and he can go off at any given moment. Jason, I want to get into it a little bit. I know everyone is so used to filling out their brackets, and then they get busted in the first weekend, and you're done. Let our listeners know what you guys have going on over at Stat Hero that could kind of make, the best time of year even better.
Oh, sure. Yeah. So what we're doing at Stat Hero, we opened up about a year ago, and it's basically a hybrid between fantasy sports and a sports book. And that meaning you're playing the house one-on-one on our head-to-head matchups. What Stat Hero does is we offer lineups that you see ahead of time that you get to pick and choose who you want to play. You put your lineup in, you put your play in, how much, we'll match it, and it's one-on-one, you versus us. So it's pretty simple. And then we have a pick'em that's been really popular with the college basketball side of things. And how pick'em works is we give you two rosters, Team A versus Team B. So, for example, if you look at Stat Hero, we have a lot of single games. So if we're talking, for example, we have the North Carolina game up against Marquette. We basically take two players, a two-player lineup on one side, a two-player lineup on another side, and then they face each other. And you basically say, okay, which team do I think is going to win? And then you basically pick that side and you put your play in, and that's it, you're in. So it's basically the fastest, easiest way to play DFS. A lot better odds than a sports book. Because you have to rely on, that referee side of things and those bad calls and those bad beats. Now you're just betting on players. You're playing players. I'm rooting on two players to beat these two players. And, again, it's getting a lot of traction. So that's what we're doing right now for the tournament.
I've been on the website before, and I've bet on the website. I actually just downloaded the app, so it's a little bit easier for me now to navigate the app. Because like when I first went to the website, it was a little overwhelming. Like, you guys have so much stuff going on, but it's a good thing. Like, you got head-to-head, you've got pick'em, you got parlays, you got survivor pools. There's so much to do. What would you recommend for somebody who's just getting started? They just downloaded the app, kind of want to ease their foot into the water. What's the best thing to kind of start with?
Oh, yeah, great question. We made the pick'em gameplay specifically for those beginners, for those people that aren't able to have the time to follow these teams, in detail, right? Sports betting, it seems like again, you have a 50-50 chance, but most of the time on a long-term basis, you're losing, right? I think the best sports bettors in the world are hitting 51, 52%. On Stat Hero, on the pick'em side of things, our users are hitting 45 to 60% consistently. That's 4 times the industry, higher than the industry win rate of 15% on these bigger tournaments, right? So I would definitely say the pick'em side of things, the pick'em, all you do is you're seeing 2 rosters and you're saying, I think this roster is going to win. Boom, making my pick, you're in 2 minutes.
And it's a mix of rosters, right? Like it's guys from all different teams on this one and on that one, right?
Exactly. So we have 2 different versions. We have what you just said, right? A bunch of different rosters. And then we do single games where we'll just take, if you want to just watch one game, we'll just use those rosters or use those players from that particular game, and we'll create 2 rosters next to each other.
It's very cool, and man, I mean, I think, look, I'm with you. I mean, you kind of get bored with just the same old. Everybody's looking for something a little bit different, something new, and with the games starting, I mean, we got the play-in games going on, and then we got the tournament starting on Thursday, and there's tons of stuff going on. And do want to remind our listeners, you can go to stathero.com/lockedon, stathero.com/lockedon. Use our promo code LOCKEDON, and they've got tons of great stuff going on. Their terms and conditions to apply. But Jason, last thing I got to know is who's in your Final Four? Who are we picking?
Oh, man, like I said, I'm a Tennessee guy right now. But again, how can you not? I'm just talking SEC here, but because I know that's what your listeners are more into. But I think Kentucky has a legit chance at making the furthest run. My heart says Tennessee, but looking at Kentucky, maybe the loss in the conference tourney is going to be a good thing for them. And they have the best draw, I think, being in the East, being the number 1. So as of now, I think my heart says Tennessee, but my mind says Kentucky. I think they're going to make the biggest run in the SEC. Which, again, is that a big prediction? I'm not sure. But, we do, Chris. Before I sign off, too, I want to tell your listeners that we have a free pick'em contest that we're offering. That listeners for free can pick a side, and if they pick the right side, they're getting a free $25 on us.
Wow!
So all they got to do, if they lose, nothing happens. But if they pick the right side, go into our free plays on the pick'em side, and $25 to play with on us. So
that's very cool. And again, the app, I can't stress how easy it is. I mean, you just go on there; it's got all the sports. You pick which sport you want, and boom, you're in business. And stathero.com/lockedon, the easiest way to get signed up and get in there. And Jason, it's going to be fun, man. We're looking forward to it. Thursday and Friday, it is madness. Everybody's taking off of work, and you're just having some fun. And again, we'll still have our paper bracket, sure, but, by Thursday night, I'm usually ripping this thing up and throwing it away, and I'm going to be on the Stat Hero app because this thing's going to be dead and gone with. So, Jason, thanks so much for the time. I really appreciate it. And, man, we'll have to catch up again soon.
Thanks, Chris. You're the man.
All right. He is Jason Jaramillo, CEO of Stat Hero. Head to stathero.com. This has been Locked On SEC.
And thanks for making Locked On Mizzou your first listen every day. Now make your second listen Locked On the NFL Draft with Ryan Tracy, former NFL corner Eric Crocker. They bring the draft to life each and every weekday with analysis and insight on college prospects and NFL front offices. It's, of course, free and available wherever you get finer podcasts. So until next time, I am John Miller, and this has been Locked on Mizzou.